Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Robert Mitchell, and I have a fantastic message for you. It's part 4 on be the best in the room. I think you could be the best in your room, in your company, in your organization, on your team. Be the best at something. You could be the best at something in the world. You might not be the best at everything, but I know you can be the best at least at something. Let me review a tiny bit. We're talking about being the best at something, and I really feel like you have to find out what your gifts are first. What Les Brown says, you have seeds of greatness in you. What are those seeds of greatness? What is great on the inside of you? And you have to find that out and let that out. And we said earlier that you can do that by asking, seeking, and knocking. For whatever you ask for, you shall receive. Whatever you seek, you shall find. And what doors you knock on, they shall be opened unto you. So I also said that to really be good at something, to really be the best at something, you have to find out what 3 groups of people want or desire. What does your customer want? What does your boss want? And what do you want? I like to say it like this. What does your customer desire? What is your boss or your employees or your workmates or your referral partners or your vendors, the people that you work with, what do they desire? And then what do you desire? And if you can find the least common denominator to those 3 desires, you will be the best at that, because your customer is going to receive what they desire, your boss or employees are going to receive what they desire, and you're going to receive what you desire. If you can find the least common denominator to those people, to these people, to you guys, you see, then you're going to be able to do that one thing. If you choose to do that, if you choose to deliver to your customer, your employer, your employees, and to yourself, if you choose to find that thing that they desire, you will be the best at that. Trust me on this. Now, it can't only be about money. I think money's good. I know what you're thinking. Money's the root of all evil. That's not true. The scriptures do say the love of money is the root of all evil. And I think what that means is that when you love money more than your customers, when you love money more than integrity, when you love money more than God, when you love money more than doing the right thing, that, my friend, is when it becomes evil. For instance, if you sell medicine for people that have cancer, and you were willing to dilute that with water so you could make twice the money, that's evil. If you choose to sell illegal drugs, especially to children, for money, that's illegal. That's evil. That's evil. All right, so I believe money's good. I know what you're thinking. Robert, money doesn't buy happiness. Well, it makes a good down payment. Money doesn't buy happiness. Well, the lack of it makes you miserable. That's what Zig Ziglar used to say. And he also said that money's right up there with oxygen. Les Brown says that the lack of money is evil. So I think that you can't just be thinking about money when you're trying to help people. It has to, at some point, be about, I shared with you in the last 3 parts about BOLD, Business Objective, a Life by Design, a fantastic Keller Williams training program put on by a fantastic woman named Diana Kokoska. And they have these wonderful BOLD laws. And the training class is 7 weeks long, 1 day a week for 7 weeks. And it's about changing your mindset. And there's wonderful BOLD laws. Like one of them is change your thinking, change your world. These are just great quotes. Change the way you look at things, and the things you look at change. Well, one fantastic BOLD law is come in contribution. We should be coming in contribution. Yes, we want money. We desire money. We desire the things that money brings. Bob Farrell, give him the pickle guy, he says that he doesn't work for money. He says money's a result of what he does. So we need to come in contribution, and we need to bring something more to the table when we talk about our desires than just, well, I want money. And so for this to really work, for you to be the best at something. And you're going to give your customer what they desire, your boss what he desires, she desires, and what you desire, and you're going to find the common denominator. It's not going to just be money. It's going to be like, for instance, I want to help people. I desire to help people. I desire to meet their needs. I desire to help people reach their full potential, you see. And then when you do that, that's when you're going to be the best in the room. And yes, you will probably make a lot of money doing that because you will become very, very valuable. I belong to an organization called Givers Gain, or BNI, and our philosophy is Givers Gain. And what we mean by that is if we help our customers, if we give our customers something that we cannot just give on our own, but we could do it with the power of a referral, when we refer to another business and we help our customers by referring them to another business so they can receive all that they need and desire, that giving will result in a gain. You see, we will receive more business. So we like to say it like this. We surround ourselves, at BNI, we surround ourselves with people that want to grow their business by helping other people grow their business. So I say Givers Gain means this. I create a three-way win situation. My customer wins because they have their needs met in a way that I can't personally do it except through the power of a referral. My referral partner wins because they have a new customer. That's why they're in business, and they wouldn't have that customer without a referral. And then I win because I have two people that absolutely love me and want to give me referrals. So that's what we call Givers Gain. Bold cause it coming contribution. Luke 6:38 said it like this: give and it shall be given back to you, pressed down, shaken together, and running over shall men and women give unto your bosom. For whatever you give, you shall receive. The Bible also says it's better to give than receive. And the reason it's better to give than receive is because you can't receive without giving. So I like to say it like this: it's better to plant than reap. It's better to sow than reap. You're like, no, I want to reap the harvest. I need the food. You can't reap without sowing. And that's why it's better to sow, because you cannot reap if you don't sow, if you don't plant, if you don't give. Can you see that? I hope you can. And so one of the big concepts, I believe there's two spiritual laws. One is, and we shared that in the last three parts, and I've already shared it today, ask and it shall be given to you. That is a spiritual law. Ask and it shall be given to you. And so I'm saying, if you don't know what the gift that you have received, it's already in your heart, it's already down in your spirit, ask. Ask God to reveal to you what your gifts are, and you'll receive them. The second spiritual law is give and it shall be given back to you. So there is a great bold coach named Rob Daniels, and he says that if you ask first before you give, you're really taking. So I think these two spiritual laws work like this: give and then ask and you shall receive. Plant and then receive the harvest. So when you want to be the best in the room, and I hope you do, when you want to be the best at something, when you want to find out what your gift is and do that, when you want to practice your gift and it becomes a skill, when you want to go to work or go to your organization or whatever your purpose in life is, and you get that gift and you hone in on that gift, then you will be the best in the room. Now, I have a small book here that I call A Life on Fire Through Passion. And I'd like to sell this book to you for $10. And it's not fully edited. This is the rough draft, but it's a fantastic book. It has a lot of good ideas in it. And what I talk about is how to live a life on fire. And I use a magnifying glass and the sun in order to describe what that looks like. And so if you open up the book, I used it in a seminar. So there's a few little work thoughts in here, and that's not really part of the book. And so you can kind of go through that first part, and you could probably pick up a little nugget or two. And one of them is on page 6. It talks about the Roadrunner and Wile E. the Coyote. And so Wile E. the Coyote, if you remember the cartoon, he was always trying to get the Roadrunner, and he tried everything to get him. He had rockets, he had skates, he had missiles, he did trains, you name it. He tried to get the Roadrunner. Here's the sad thing. Coyotes are twice as fast as Roadrunners. All he had to do was run. That was the one thing that he had to do, and he could do it better than Roadrunners, but he didn't do it. He tried everything except running. Running was his gift. What is your gift? What is your 1, 2, 3 gifts that are in the inside of you that if you did those gifts, you would be the best in the room? I like the way the founder of BNI says it, Dr. Ivan Misner. He says, do 6 things 1,000 times. Don't do 1,000 things 6 times. I say it like this, be really, really good at 10 things, not average at 100 things. Hone in on your skill and on your gifts and work on those things. That's what we call the 80-20 rule, and we will talk about that more in part 5. And so the real part of this book is going to start on page 14. So you can thumb through the first 14 pages and get a little bit of nuggets out of it. Or you can go straight to 14, and that's where the actual book starts. The first part needs a little bit of clarification on it. I would like to talk about it for a tiny bit because I want to talk a little bit about focus. If you're focused on the one thing, if you're focused on the one thing your customer wants, one thing your employer wants, one thing you want, if you focus on that like you would focus with a magnifying glass, that thing will happen. What you focus on expands, another bold law. What you focus on expands. So I want you to think of the magnifying glass as your heart, as your spirit, as the real you, as we called it, the hidden man of the heart. Coincidentally, magnifying glasses are made out of sand, which is really dirt, and Adam was made out of the dirt of the soil, and then God breathed his breath into Adam, and Adam became a living soul or a living spirit. God has breathed his breath into you, and you have become a living spirit. And if you haven't accepted him, ask him to come in your life, and he will breathe his spirit into you, and you will become a living spirit. Well, that's like the magnifying glass is glass. And what's interesting about the magnifying glass is we need the sun to start the fire. The sun represents God. It also represents the one thing that you are called to do. Your one thing, your race, your gift, your seeds of greatness, the things that you're supposed to do, and the desires of your heart, that represents the sun. And then you have to turn the magnifying glass just right to get that focal point with the sun, to make it focus right on the material that you're trying to catch on fire. That turning of the glass represents your attitude. It represents your emotions. It represents your slant on life. If you're going to be the best at your company, if you're going to be the best in your organization, at some point you have to adjust your attitude to be focused just right on the gifts that God has for you. So you're going to have the right attitude. Zig Ziglar said it like this: your altitude, how high you go, depends on your attitude, the way you look at things, not your aptitude, how smart you are. So your attitude is very important when it comes to being the best at something in the room. And then, of course, the wood that you want to catch on fire, that represents your life. That represents your hobbies. That represents your activities, your job, your relationships, how you treat people. And so you have to really ask yourself, is if your life on the outside, what you do, your outer actions, the people that you hang around with, are they in agreement with your core values? Are they in agreement with your spirit? Are they in agreement with your inside core, that spiritual life, that true you, that real you, that thing on the inside that comes from God? For instance, it's faith and joy and peace and love and kindness, the fruit of the Spirit. That's all on the inside of you. Are you portraying that on the outside of you? If you're not in agreement with yourself. And the Bible says that a double-minded man is unstable in all his and her ways. So you've got to get stable by having your outer life match your inner life. Now, I want to say this, that it's kind of like, it's like the word enthusiasm. The word enthusiasm comes from, you got it, 3 Greek words. In, which is inside, theo, which is God, or the study of God, theology, God, breath, spirit, gusto. In the Greek, one word means many, many things. So it could mean God, it could be breath, it could be spirit, it could be life, it could be energy, it could be on fire. And then ism means life. And so the technical definition of enthusiasm means living life with God on the inside. Or you could say living life from the inside out. Living life with energy, living life with emotion, living life with on fire, you see. And so I like to say it like this: enthusiasm is living life with emotion, not just going through the motions. And when I think of enthusiasm, I think of a bumblebee. When I think of a giver's gain, I think of a bumblebee. When I think of coming in contribution, I think of a bumblebee. A bumblebee comes up to the plant, up to the flower, and it's going to suck all the nectar it wants out of life, that desires out of life. That's the asking part. But first, it's going to pollinate the flower. It's going to have these little fuzzies on it, and it's got pollen on it from the last plant, and it's going to deposit or give pollen to those pistils. And when it gives pollen to those pistils, they're going to get fertilized, they're going to become seeds, they're going to fall to the ground, and that's next year's harvest, you see. And so when you give, you receive. When you give from your heart, you're going to receive. So when you're coming from contribution, when you're living a life on fire, a life of enthusiasm, you're going to be the best in the room. The reason I had to say it that way is because most of us live on autopilot. 97% of what we do is by habit. It's autopilot. In other words, our brain will tell us, well, we've been there, done that, boom. And so we're not living intentionally. We're not living on purpose. We're not living with our heart. We're not living with enthusiasm or on fire. We're just going through the motions. And so I want to give you an example of how employees are not thinking about what their customer needs and what their employer needs. They're just thinking about, and I'll use it this way on purpose, what they want, not what they desire. What the employee's not thinking about the desire of their heart. They're not thinking about the gifts of their heart. They're just trying to get through the day. They're just trying to get paid. They're just trying not to get into trouble. So they're not really using their gifts. They're just going through the motions, you see. And I have a story here to really explain this to you. So when I was in Get Go, and I shared that with you on the last 3 parts, is that I worked for a company I started in 1987, from 87 to 95, about 8 or 9 years. And it was a convenience store, retail. We sold gasoline, we sold groceries, we sold a lot of stuff. And I started out as a regular employee, and then I became a manager 1 year later. Now, because I was living my gift, because I was enthusiastic, because I was coming contribution, I was only 26. I knew what I desired, though. I knew what was in my heart. See, I was going to go into the ministry. I had graduated from Rhema Bible Training Center in 1987, and I was going to go into the ministry. And I believe that God will speak to us in a still small voice. And there was a still small voice on the inside of me that said, don't go into the ministry, go into business. Go into business. So I went into business, I went into retail, and I started working for Get and Go stores in 1987 as a 26-year-old, and I had a family to take care of, so I had to work 66 hours a week in order to break even. And then 20 years later, 20 years ago, I started my own company, Quick Dry Restoration and Remodeling, and I am in business, just sure enough, as that inner voice said. Now, as an employee, Get and Go had a policy, and they had an outside company that's called a mystery shopper or a bonus shopper. You've probably heard about that, where a pretend customer comes in, shops, does a report, and sends it to the company. And there was like 10 items on there. I won't get into all of them. There was wearing your name tag, having the right shirt on, looking groomed, charging the right price, giving a receipt. And there was one particular item on there that was a little vague, and it was called uniqueness of service. Uniqueness of service meant you went beyond the call of duty. You went out of your way. You walked the second mile. You did extra. You were super duper good. And so if you were nice and you did everything perfect, you got 90 points. But if you were extra nice and you went over and did that extra mile, then you would get 100 points, you see. And then the points would convert into dollars. So we were shopped once a month, and every 3 months, once a quarter, they took that average. So if you had a 90, 90, and a 90, you would get $90. Now, if you had 100, 100, and 100, they would double that, and you would get $200. And then if you got caught calling somebody by their name, you got an additional $25. So you could max it out and get $275 a quarter. Or the minimum you could get was 60. Because if you got a 50 average, you didn't get any money at all, and you got in trouble. You got in trouble, and you might get fired. Not only that, but if you got under a 60 average, that did not qualify you. You were not qualified for the monthly bonus of the store got that could be thousands of dollars. So there were employees that were really mad at the policy because they were under 60, number one, and then number two, they didn't get any money for that, and then number three, they lost the bonus that they were going to get, that the company was going to give them for their monthly bonus program. All right, I hope I set the stage for that. I wanted to do well. I wanted to get 100 every time. Not only because I wanted the $100 or the $200, I wanted to help my customers. I used to tell people, I'm not going into the ministry, I'm going into business, and I'm going to save the world one mop bucket at a time, because we did a lot of cleaning. I'm going to save the world one customer at a time. And I told my minister friends, I'm not going to preach, I'm going to let the light shine. I'm going to let the light come out of my bushel, and I'm going to be a light on the city, and I'm going to be so extremely nice to my customers. I'm going to touch them and pray for them. And I wanted my inside just a joy and peace to come into every single customer. I was going to treat my customers like a preacher treats his congregation. You see, I was going to take care of them. I was going to treat them like a shepherd treats his flock. 26 years old. I had that gift. I had that enthusiasm, and I would do it. I would take care of my customers like you cannot believe. So the most employees, they didn't care about the bonus shopper program. They only wanted the money. And they didn't really care about the customers as much as they could have. They just didn't want to get in trouble. So a lot of them cared. Don't get me wrong. A lot of them cared. But they didn't care about one thing, and that was to increase, well, let me say it like this. One of the things on the bonus shopper was to, if you suggestive sold, if you upsold, you would get $15. If you got caught doing that, that was part of the $100. You would get $15. If you didn't, of course, you didn't get the $15. So let me set the stage. The customer, I happen to tell you, already wants something else when they come in a store. I know that to be true, okay? The employee should want what the customer wants. See if we can get that common denominator. Most of them didn't. Most of them didn't really want to find out what the customer wanted. They didn't want to get in trouble. So if they thought that mystery shopper could have been a mystery shopper, they would have said something like this: do you want a soda with that? Do you want a Coke with that? Do you want a bag of chips with that? But there was no enthusiasm and there was no purpose. They were just doing it out of habit. They were just going through the motions. Matter of fact, some people would say this, and I'll say it slow in a minute. Pop chip candy bar mints with that. Pop chip candy bar mints with that. Pop chip candy bar mints with that. And the customer would say no. And if they did slow, they'd say pop, soda pop, pop, chips, potato chips, candy bar, or mints with that. You see, that was their way of upselling. Everybody said no. Matter of fact, the customer was preset to say no. They did not want to be asked for things that they didn't want. And we were trained to ask for certain things. And I believe that the people that trained us did not have the right gift to train us, and they led us down the wrong path. For instance, every time we sold a pack of cigarettes, we were supposed to ask, do you want a lighter? Every time we sold a cup of coffee, we were asked, do you want a donut? Every time we sold gasoline, we were told to ask, do you want oil? And everybody said no. It was amazing. Like 99.9% of the people said no. So the employees didn't want to ask because nobody wants to be told no to all the time. And the customer didn't want to be asked because everybody was asking them the same thing. Our competitors would do it. Everybody would do it. Everybody would say, do you want a soda? Do you want chips? Do you want this? Do you want that? And the customer was already knowing that they didn't want it, and they were going to say no, 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 no. So I had learned that, and the employers wanted us to increase our sales. And what does the employee want? Well, unfortunately, the employee just didn't want to get in trouble. So they would just go through the motions. I wanted more than that. I wanted my gift to shine, number one, and I wanted to meet the employees' needs, and I wanted to, or the customers' needs, and I wanted to meet my business, the owner's needs. So after being told no 100 times, I said, this isn't working. So I started asking customers, all right, so you know that I'm supposed to ask you for a lighter. Yes. Why don't you want a lighter? This guy pulled out a lighter. My grandpa gave me this lighter. Wow, your grandpa gave you that lighter? Yes. And so I said, do you know that we sell flints and propane for that lighter? He goes, I didn't know that. About 2 weeks later, he brought in the lighter. He goes, hey, I'm coming in for a flint and propane. You see, customers want something. If you sell something, it's your job to find out what they want, what they need. One of the best ways to do that is to ask questions. So I was doing a lot of reading and studying about what people wanted and just motivational stuff. See, and one of the bold laws that we have is that your business grows to the extent that you grow. So you grow first and then your business grows. So I want to help my company grow. My company can't grow until the members grow, and the members can't grow until they grow on the inside. So I like to say it like this. Your business, your economy, your paycheck is going to grow as you grow. Your company's going to grow as your business grows, and your business is going to grow as you grow on the inside. Can you see that? So we need to grow. So I was growing. So I learned to ask open-ended questions. I didn't ask people, do you want a cup of coffee? I asked them, do you like drinking coffee or orange juice? Oh, and you know what they would do? They would tell me no. I go, do you like coffee or orange juice in the morning? No, thank you. Wait, and they go, wait, what? Remember I said we're 97% autopilot? We had trained our customers to say no, thank you, you see. And so they automatically said no. And so by me asking open-ended questions, I started learning about customers. And then I learned this one thing, and I think I learned it from the book, The Magic of Thinking Big. I'm almost positive that's where I learned this from, and it just revolutionized my life in retail. He said in the book, I forget the author's name, I'd have to look it up. He said in the book that people want a little bit more of what they're already getting. So it hit me. Like, for instance, a customer would come in and ask for 2 pieces of chicken, and it was a 2-piece. It had 2 pieces of chicken with a couple of French fries and then a couple of other things, see? And so I would say, do you want a Pepsi? Do you want a Coke? Do you want a drink? And they would say no. And I would say, why not? And they go, well, I've got something in the car. I've already got my drink. I'm a diabetic. I don't drink Coke. I drink water. You see, they want something. They just don't want that thing that we were asking them. So what I learned is, we know that they want chicken. We know that they want French fries because they're asking for it, right? So I would say, do you want to make that a 3-piece? You get a couple extra slices, you get a 3rd piece of chicken to boot, you get a couple of slices of potato wedges, and you get an extra sour cream. And the sour creams normally cost 25 cents extra. 4 or 5 out of 10 times people would say yes. And so what happened is, I became the best in the room. I became the best in the company at asking people what they wanted. Matter of fact, I did it so well, within a year of working for the company, I became a manager, a training manager, and the training coordinator of all employees that were hired, and I would teach all the employees. After 1 year, I was 27 years old, I taught them customer service. Why? I followed my gift. I was following my gift, and I was finding out what the employer wanted, which is to grow their company sales, and I was finding out what employees or the customers wanted, which was more chicken or more of anything that they were already buying. Okay, so it didn't matter what they were buying. I knew they already wanted that, or else they wouldn't have bought it to begin with. Here's a funny story, and then I'll finish up with what I said in part 3 on how Bob, by the book Bob, got a promotion. So I would ask customers if they want a lighter. They come in to buy a pack of cigarettes. We're supposed to ask them if they want a lighter. You want a lighter with that? No. 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 It was crazy. It was just absolutely insane to keep asking the same question over and over and getting the same answer. But this is where corporate was wrong. Corporate didn't know what their customers desired. Corporate didn't know what their employees desired. Corporate made us ask those questions, and it didn't go very well. So they weren't number one at what they were doing, because they didn't know what we desired and they didn't know what the customer desired. I did. So I started asking people, why don't you want a lighter? The guys would tell me they just lose them. The guys would say, I just lose a lighter. The women say, I have a whole purse full of lighters. I knew what was going on. The guys were lighting the women's cigarette, and somehow the woman ended up with a lighter, and it's in their purse, okay? And so one night, I was working the late shift, and I had already been a manager, so I normally worked the morning shift, and then I had learned this about sales while I was a manager, and now I'm working the afternoon, or I guess from like 2 to 12, and it was on a Friday. And a young man came in, and he bought a lighter. That's it. He bought a lighter and mints. And I could smell his aftershave. I mean, he was decked up, he's going out, you could tell. And I said, sir, do you want a pack of cigarettes? And he goes, no, I already have some. So you came in just for the lighter, just came in for the lighter. I said, do you normally come in for a lighter? He goes, I only buy a lighter on Friday nights. I said, why is that? He goes, that's when I go out, and then I lose it, and so I buy one the next Friday. So I said, you're not going home with this lighter? He goes, I never do. I buy one lighter every Friday night. And it hit me. There's 2 things that we talk about in retail. One of them is a planned purchase. A planned purchase is when somebody comes in, they're planning on buying it. That's why they came into your store, because they want that item. A impulse item is something that they didn't come in for, but they decided to buy it while they were there. And so our company thought lighters were impulse items. They thought donuts were impulse items. So they would try to get us to suggestive sell, is what we called it, upsell, an impulse item when they bought the item they wanted. And I realized that a lighter was not an impulse item. It was a planned purchase. Corporate thought it was an impulse item. So I tried to talk to the buyers about it, and they said I was crazy. And I realized that the lighters were not impulse items, they were planned purchase. And if we would have known that as a corporation, it would have helped us. I later started doing seminars. I did the seminars for the customer service. And so I'd ask everybody in the room who's a smoker. And then half the people would raise their hand. This is the 80s. I don't think people smoke as much now, thankfully. And so the women, I would challenge the women, anybody that was willing to do it, just dump out their purse. Sure enough, there was 20 lighters in all the women's purses that were smokers. So I knew what I was talking about, that the men were buying lighters and the women were ended up with them. I asked all the women, did you buy these lighters? And they all said, nope, I've never bought a lighter in my life. Knowing that would have helped us when we're trying to sell lighters, you see. And I can't believe out of a company of 500 people with a bunch of big shots and all these kind of people, that I was the only one that actually figured that out. Another thing I figured out is this, that people liked half and half in their coffee. I liked half and half in my coffee. I knew other people would like half and half in their coffee. And in those days, we had this terrible powdery milk that was just awful, and I hated it. And I'd carry half and half with me when I would go out so I could have my own milk, or half and half. And so when my customers would come in, I would have a little half and half for them at no charge. I would put it on the counter, and I would actually pay for it out of my own pocket. And my customers loved it. Corporate found out about it. They called me and they got mad at me for doing that. They said, so you can't do that. I said, well, that's what the customers want. No, you can't do that. Well, about 2 weeks later, as luck would have it, our competitors started putting half and half on the counters. They called me and, what's going on with half and half? Sure enough, we started putting half and half on the counters as well. And now everybody has half and half. And it's cooled, and it's in a big bag, and it's in a little refrigerator, and you can get your coffee, and you go up there and you put the half and half in there. Well, in the 80s, I came up with that. You know what? I knew what my customers wanted. I knew what they wanted, and I did my best to give it to them. And so we were talking about Special Olympics. I was talking about By the Book Bob. He was about to get fired. And so if you haven't listened to 1, 2, and 3, I encourage you to. And if you haven't, let me tell you who Bob is. Bob was about to get fired because he had a lot of customer complaints. And he had customer complaints, not because he was mean to customers, but because he was short. Like, for instance, we had a policy, you can't talk on the phone while a customer's in front of you. So the bank called Bob to ask him a quick question. He wouldn't answer because he had a customer. Hold on 1 second. And they kept calling him, and he says, I can't talk to you, have customers. And so that was a complaint that he had gotten. Another complaint was a vendor wanted to have him check him in, but we're not supposed to check him in, we have a customer. So the vendor waited hours. And see, Bob didn't know how to, he was the letter of the law, and he didn't understand that it's okay to take a quick, hold on 1 second, customer. Yes, no, yes. Okay, thanks, bye. Sorry about that. That was the bank. You see, he didn't know that. He didn't know how to do that. What the policy meant was, can't be talking to your wife or husband on home. Yeah, honey, yeah. Okay, yeah, I'll bring home some milk when I get home. Yeah, hold on a second. Yeah, I got a customer. Yeah, what do you want? Yeah. No, I was talking to the customer. Yeah, no, I was talking to my wife. See, that's what they didn't want. He didn't understand that. And so they were going to fire him because of his personality, that he was the letter of the law. And so I sat him down. And so they go, okay, I said this on the last part. I was the only one that didn't want him fired. 10 supervisors, I'm the only one that doesn't want him fired. The head guy, my mentor, Tom, my boss, Tom, wanted him fired because of the complaints. And I was the only one that stood up for this guy. And everybody else said, yeah, fire him. And I said, no, let's not fire him. Let's work with him. Let's train him. Let's help him. And they said, Robert, you could never get along with this guy. He's so hard-headed, you guys would clash. And I said, I'll take him in one of my stores. So Tom said, Robert, you take him in one of your stores. He said, but if I get one more complaint out of this guy, he's fired. And it's going to be on you, and it's going to make your reputation look bad. So I said, okay. And then the supervisor that had him said, I want him written up. You know, we would write people up. If you did something wrong, you got to write up. You probably have seen that before. If you get too many of those write-ups, you get fired. And so I said, well, I'll write them up. So I happen to know it was called a written counsel. That's what a write-up is called, a written counseling. A counseling that you get that's in writing. I knew what the word counseling meant. Counseling means that someone sees a blind spot that you have, and they counsel you, they show you, they reveal to you the blind spot So I brought Bob into the office. He didn't like me. I was on a review team and he was real rude to me all the time and harsh and short and stuff like that. I know I'm painting a bad picture. When I say rude, I mean harsh. Like, I don't agree with that. I think you're wrong on that. I don't like the way you did that. This is unfair, you see. Just short and snappy, you see. I'm not saying he was wrong. It's just the attitude. And nobody liked it. They called him by the book Bob. Employees didn't like him, customers didn't like him, and evidently our bosses didn't like him, so they wanted fired. So I talked to Bob. I give him what we call a written counseling. I call him on the phone and I say, hey Bob, we're gonna transfer you to another store and I want you to come into the office and I want to talk to you about it. Other supervisors would call their employees and say, come to the office, and they didn't tell them why, and everybody thought they were gonna get fired. And some of these supervisors actually enjoyed it. If they were gonna get a pay raise, if they were gonna get a transfer, if something good was gonna happen, they'd call them into the office and they'd make that employee sweat. I never did that. I said, I have some really good news for you. Come on in, I wanna talk about it. Sometimes if it was bad news, I would say, I have some bad news for you. Something's, come on in, we've got to talk about it. So that they would know what to expect. So Bob comes in, he knows what to expect, he knows he's getting it transferred, and I share with him about how he was going to be fired, and I asked him, do you want your job? And he goes, Robert, I really want my job, I love my job, I need this job, I've been here 10 years, and I really want the job. And so I shared with him on the counseling, it was a beautiful written counseling. It said, I put on there the definition of courtesy, kindness, service, you see. And I had this really long list of things. And then I shared with him about the difference between the spirit of the law and the letter of the law. The letter of the law says it has to be this way. The spirit of the law says it has to be this way. And I can do this because of this situation. Like, for instance, I have a customer right here, but I've got a hard-working vendor that's bringing in soda, and I'm supposed to take care of my customer first, but I'm really busy, and this guy can't wait here for 2 hours, so I just politely tell my customer, hold on 1 second, and I check the guy in for 2 minutes, and I run back to the counter and say, I'm so sorry, we have to take care of our vendors too. Can I help you? Let me buy you a free cup of coffee for making you wait. You see, in other words, there's some sort of bin that has to be there. Same thing on the phone. I'm sorry, sir. The bank is calling. I got to give them some important information. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, 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 yes. Boom. See, and he didn't know how to do that. So he goes, well, could you teach me that? I've been here 10 years and I've never heard that once. I said, I can. And I said, Bob, you need to do one thing. I said, we have a Special Olympic campaign. You need to be #1. He goes, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can. I don't know how to ask for money. I said, I'll teach you. And so I'm supposed to be at work at 9. He's supposed to be at work at 5. I said, I'll be at your store Monday morning to work with you. He thought I meant 9. I got there at 5. I got there before he did. And he goes, what are you doing here? I said, I told you I'd come and help you. So all of a sudden, we're working together, and I shared this with you. The very first customer comes in when I'm there at 5 in the morning, gets $10.05 worth of gas, only pays for 10, and he throws the $10 over the, he butts in line. He doesn't want to stand in line. He just gives him $10 on pump 5, and Bob's mad at him for not following the rules, for not getting in line, for not waiting 3 minutes, and paying when he was supposed to. He didn't like the fact, so you could see it on his face. He's just like, oh, you son of a gun. And then he saw that the guy got $10.05 worth of gas. He goes, sir, you better get back in here. Give me that nickel, or I'm gonna call the police on you. So the guy comes back in, he has a quarter, he throws the quarter at Bob, hits Bob in the forehead. The quarter bounces off Bob, and he goes, you can shove that up here, And then Bob picks up the quarter, undaunted in faith, rings up 5 cents in gas, takes 20 pennies out of the register and puts it in the penny cup and asks the customer, can I help you? I'm like, Bob! I called Paul, he was working. Paul comes to the register. I take Bob to the back. I said, Bob, if that guy complains, that's your last complaint. You're fired. He goes, well, what did I do wrong? See, it's the attitude. What did I do wrong? His attitude was wrong, and he didn't even know it. So I took him outside. I showed him that it's hard to see the digital pumps when the sun's shining on it. And then plus I pulled up my car there, and we got $10 worth of gas, and it trickled a couple more pennies because his pump needed what's called a diaphragm, where if somebody lets off of it right away and a penny or two still comes out, that means you need a diaphragm. So in a sense, it wasn't the customer's fault that he got 10.05 in gas, you see. So we have to have the spirit of the law, and we have to understand the attitude. I remember one time reading a story where this guy wanted to park, and there was a lot of snow in the parking lot, and they had plowed parts of it so you could drive in, and a lady parked right there where you could it was all clear, and she parked in the wrong spot, and this guy had to walk through snow up to his ankles, up to his knees almost, and his socks were getting wet, his shoes were getting, he was really mad at her for being so selfish to park where we were supposed to walk. And as soon as he got past her, he heard the door slam, so he's going to turn around and give her the dirty look, give her that look. And when he did, he realized she was disabled, and she was on crutches, not crutches, but like braces, probably polio, and she could barely walk. And all of a sudden, his attitude changed. See, the facts didn't change. His perception of the facts changed. His attitude changed. And that's what I helped Bob do. I helped Bob change his attitude. He did it. He did it himself. I influenced him. He did it. I've tried to influence 1,000 people, and not all 1,000 changed. So I'm not giving myself credit for Bob changing. He changed his attitude. He changed the way he looked at things, and the things he looked at changed. He got a promotion to the #1 store in the company. I talked about this on part 3, our truck stop, Get and Go 43. The first day on my job there, I'm going back a year. This is before Bob and I meet. I go to the truck stop, and I walk in there, and everybody's got a bad attitude. It's a dirty, dirty store. It's the worst store we have, but it's the #1 store. Nobody follows the rules. Everybody takes advantage of the company. Nobody's following the policies. And I walk in there, and I'm Mr. Get and Go. They said, I've got a shirt on, a tie on, creased sleeves, and I'm walking in there. I'm 100% company man. And I walk in there, and there was this lady named Brenda, and she says, hey, hotshot, what do you think you're going to try to do to us? We've had 100 supervisors come and go. What are you going to try to do to us to change us? Because we're not your normal Get and Go store. And she was like this, and I said, well, the first thing I'd like to do is help you all raise Special Olympic money. We only have 2 weeks left in the campaign, and I noticed that you haven't turned any money in. And she said, we don't get money for Special Olympics. Truck drivers won't give. I said, well, why don't we ask the tourist? Because we had the trucks part, and then the other side was travelers. We called them the tourists. And she goes, oh, you mean the terrorists? That was before 9/11. Oh, the terrorists? I said, that's not a good way to talk about your customers. She goes, they won't give either. I said, well, let me try. I said, I've worked with 100 stores, and every single one of them have given. Every single one of them have given, so let me see if I can collect money. I said, I have learned that 9 out of 10 people will give if you ask them to. I said, that's what I've learned, okay? And I shared with you on part 2 that I'd share the how on this particular item. #1, you have to have a big opening on top. You see, Jerry's Kids and MDA, they have a tiny little jar, and they have a tiny little slice, and guess what? They get a tiny bit of money. Now, they get a lot of money because there's a lot of stores that do it. The best way is to have a really big jar and a big hole on top so they can just throw their money in there, make it easy on them. The second thing is, I never asked for more than a nickel. I just said, sir, ma'am, would you like to throw a nickel or two and help out the Special Olympians of Oklahoma? You see, and people, 9 out of 10 would throw a nickel or two, or a lot of them would throw 99 cents in there. I would do it this way. I'd go, here's your change, 99 cents, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 is 10, and 10 is 20. I had the change in my hand, gave him the dollar bills, and said, sir, ma'am, do you want to throw a nickel or two in to help the Special Olympians of Oklahoma? Throw it all in there. Boom. 9 out of 10 times. It was wonderful. That's why we were #1. I had the formula. I knew what the customer wanted. They wanted to help people. I knew what my company wanted. They wanted to look good in the community and pay it back and pay it forward and give back. I knew what I wanted. I wanted to help people. You see, and I took those 3 things, and I found the common denominator, which was Special Olympics. And so I was number one at Special Olympics because of that. So I kept going, and all of a sudden I'm at the truck stop. And so all of a sudden Brenda goes, "Hey guys," and I'll use her exact words, "come over here. This is going to be hilarious. Robert's going to beg for money for the little crippled kids." That's how she said it. And they all came in. There was about 5 or 6 or 7 of them. They were all looking at me, and all the customers were hearing this going on. They were hearing what was going on because there was a long line. It was a very busy store. So they heard all the conversations that were going back and forth. So I come up to the first guy, and they go, "Do you even know how to run a register?" I said, "Sure, I know how to run the register." See, because I wanted to stay in touch. Even though as a supervisor, I didn't have to run the register, I wanted to know how to run the register so I could help other people run the register, you see. And so I'm running the register, and I asked the very first person, I said, "Sir, would you like to give a nickel or two to help out the Special Olympic kids?" And he goes, "No." And he looks at the girls, and they all laughed, and they all snickered, and he kind of gave them a thumbs up and a little wink, and he walked out the door. Undaunted in my faith, I turned around and said, "I told you 9 out of 10 I'll give. I like to get that one out of the way first." They snickered. I turned around, second person was a lady. I said, "Ma'am, would you like to throw a nickel or two in to help with the Special Olympic kids of Oklahoma?" And she said, "No." Oh, they giggled so loud, everybody in line, 10, 15 people are in line, they all heard her. And she said, "No, I want to give $5. And she pulled out a $5 bill, and she pointed her finger at those guys, and she says, "My daughter's in Special Olympics, and that's why I come to get and go. God bless you, sir." And she gave $5. The next person gave, the next person. So I'd go, "Sir, do you want to be the 8th person in a row to give?" "Yes." And see, 15 people are in line. They are all hearing me say this. "Would you like to be the 16th person?" "Yes." "The 17th person?" "Yes." "The 18th person?" "Yes." The guys were about to leave. I said, "No, you guys stand and you watch. This is what you're going to do, and you watch." And I made them watch me collect money for Special Olympics. I got to the 28th person. I said, "Sir, would you like to be the 28th person in a row to give the Special Olympics?" And he said no. And he turned around and he walked out. And the next guy said, "Sir, sir." And he turned around and he goes, "I'll give for you." And he throws money in there for him, and then he pulled $1 out for him and said, "Could we say 29 in a row?" You see, and so that lady, Brenda, collected $1,500 in 2 weeks. The next year, she collected $4,300. The next year, they collected $7,600. Can you see that? Is that amazing? We were number one at that one thing. When we collected 4,300 and 7,600, we switched from Special Olympics to MDA. Everybody said, "Well, Robert, what are you going to do?" I said, "I'm going to collect for MDA." They said, "We thought you knew somebody in Special Olympics and that's why you did that." And I said, "No, I will help anybody that I have a chance to, number one, and I'll do whatever the customer asks, the customer and the company wants, because I want to be a light. I want to do my best. I want to be number one. I want to be the best at what I'm supposed to do," you see. So Bob ends up getting a promotion at the truck stop at 43. He softens his edges a little bit, becomes a fantastic employee, a fantastic manager, and became number one for 2 years in a row, collecting $4,300 and $7,600. You see, so you can be number one. Here's the formula. What does your customer want? Desire. What does your employer want? Desire. What do you desire? What's your gift? And you can narrow that down to 1 or 2 things. You will be number one in that spot, at least in one thing, maybe in many things. Follow your gifts, find out what your gifts are, be in your strength zone. On part 5, we're going to talk about what is your strength zone and how you can live in the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule is 80% of our efforts only produce 20% of our results. 20% of our effort produces 80% of the results. I want you to work on the 20% that produces the 80% and delegate that other 80 to other teammates or other people, you see. All right, my name is Robert Mitchell. If you want to see more like podcasts like this, go to robertallenmitchell.com. You can see 1, 2, and 3 on that as well. And if you need to get you one of these I Am a Giant Slayer t-shirts, let me know that as well. On my website, you can email me, robert@robertallenmitchell.com. Allen is A-L-L-E-N. And of course, I am a giant slayer because the monster that was under my bed as a kid, when I got older, got in my head, you see, and I had to slay that giant, because it's the giant in here, not out there, that's going to hinder you. And Diana Kokoska with Bold says, don't listen to your drunk monkey. Don't listen to your negative self-talk. Thank you very much and have a great day.